What's going on, y'all, and welcome on in. Today's tier list is made specifically for the newly added ML5 recruitment event that Smilegate just released, the headhunting one. And so we have 36 of the current ML5s in the game, and this is not your typical, RTA end of season tier list. This is not like our previous one we did that is mostly focused to help new players decide on, which ML5s they should aim for. This is just an all-encompassing ML5 tier list that hopefully will help reassure you guys on your picks. Now remember, with all my tier lists, you can move a unit up and down, left or right a little bit, and it's all just preference. Some of y'all may want some of these units up and down. Please don't get offended if your favorite unit is at the bottom. This is just, my own personal preferences based on the current meta, how things have been changing. And yeah, with that being said, I'll break down all of it. Let's get into it. Gentlemen, real quickly before I continue this sweet tier list, I need to tell you a little bit about the Amazon App Store and why you need to be using it right now, especially for Epic 7. The major kicker is, if you want to be saving up to 20% off in-game purchases, that's right, any in-game purchase, even those really nice value packs that include those Galaxy bookmarks, those gold transits that might net you even more Moonlight 5 stars. Well, you use Amazon coins to save up to 20% off. Let me tell you how. You can start saving in 3 easy steps. First, purchase Amazon coins at a special discounted rate. So it's going to scale a little bit. 10,000 will get you 18% off. That'll scale up to 20% max. Even if you're more of a light spender though, guys, you're still saving 10, 15%. Why wouldn't you, right? Save as much as you can. Then you get the Epic 7 app on your Android phone or tablet from the Amazon App Store. Give it a quick download, open Epic 7 app, and log into your game account. You're ready to save. It's that simple. There's other games there as well, but especially for Epic 7, definitely save some on any in-game purchases you were going to make anyways. So use the links in the description below to find out more and to start saving a ton of money today via Amazon App Store and Amazon coins. Thanks, guys. Alrighty, y'all. Instead of starting from the top, let's actually discuss the bottom 2 rows real quick, as I have some notes on these. So in the very bottom row, we have the not available tier. All this means, guys, most of y'all know this already, is that Commander Pavel and Astromancer Elena are the cutoff points, meaning Smilegate decided you can't get these 2, but you can get the other 34 ML5s. So unfortunately, if you really wanted those 2, it is what it is. They're the 2 newest. It makes sense why they didn't. So yeah, they aren't available to get for your free ML5. The recently buffed row, we have Top Model Luluka, Remnant Violet, and Pirate Captain Flan, and I didn't want to place them. I'll go ahead and talk about where I think they may end up, but since that could be, we're gonna have to see how powerful they are on release, and by the time you're watching this, it'll be like day 1. It'll be like just happening, so people are still gonna have to test and feel out how good the actual changes are, how significant they are. So I don't want to put them into a spot yet, but I'll go ahead and give my thoughts on them. So if you did want to pull one of these 3 or pick one of these 3, you have at least a rough idea of where I would place them. Top Model Luluka buffs aren't that significant. However, for endgame players that can make use of the new crit imprint, I believe she also gets some combat readiness. And on top of that, guys, for real-time arena, she's actually receiving 7 speed since she is a mage. So with all that considered, I think Top Model Luluka is going to be in a great spot for RTA. If I had to place her somewhere right now, just guessing, she's not my kind of unit, so this is not my area of expertise. I'd place her somewhere maybe in the bottom of A, top of B row, somewhere in that range. And then she could end up higher, she could end up lower, depending on how significant the changes are, how useful or how much you guys can utilize her her new buffs, as they're very gear score stat related. Okay, so just a heads up on that. She is going to be much better though than she is right now. Remnant Violet, his changes also aren't like extremely significant, but I think he was already in a very good spot. I would probably put him somewhere like top of B, and he's only going to get better with the changes because with the new Urvalian artifact, with the way they're changing the focus and now he can proc out of turn, he also gets some minor buffs like the increased duration of buffs. I think Remnant Violet's going to be in a very solid spot. I'd probably place him somewhere near Top Model Luluka, so bottom of A, top of B. Conservatively, let's just say he'll be somewhere in the high B row. That's where I'm going to guess he's going to end up. That's where I would place him even before the buffs, somewhere around there. Pirate Captain Flan is the hardest to gauge out of all of these guys, as she got so many changes. She's gonna lose the chance to crit on S1. She has the ability to steal buffs. She can now make use of the Seaside Ice Area, the Summertime Ice Area artifact, much better to detonate those bombs. Plus all the other buffs she's getting, guys. I really have no clue where to place her, so I'll put her somewhere in the middle for now, but this one more so than ever. She could end up being insane. She could end up being pretty good. No matter what, she's going to be way better in my opinion, unless you're on a weird crit build. She's going to be way better than she is now. So where previously she would be in the niche row, I think she definitely moves up to the B, if not potentially higher, depending on how good those are. But yeah, that's why we don't talk about these too much, guys, is they could end up much higher or lower, depending on how it all pans out. Okay, now let's go ahead and start from the top and go from S down to A, B, and C. Real quick, boys, if ever at any point you enjoy this content, it helps you out, please consider subscribing to this channel. We're trying to get those sub numbers up, and it would mean a lot to me. Thanks, guys. Starting off in our S row, the meta row, we have the #1 unit, in my opinion, Apocalypse Ravi. I don't need to say too much, guys. She's just a universal bruiser, one of the perfect, I would call like perfect bruiser, meaning she doesn't have too many weaknesses. She can fit in almost any playstyle. She can be first picked and not get punished that hard, really. She is such a good unit to have, guys, especially for real-time arena, because you can just draft her early on and sort of have the rest of your playstyle have a safer spot, as she doesn't have, you know, too many hard counters per se, if any at all, now that Hua is nerfed. Overall, I think you can never go wrong with her, no matter how you play, no matter what you play. And the fact that she just got a skin is even better. Cherry on top. So I think most players, if you have no preference, depending on looks, depending on style, depending on whatever, if you just need a pick and you don't own APOC, guys, this is probably the best answer, bar none. Okay, so just a heads up, this is the #1 pick, if all things considered. So next up we have Conquer Lilius, who is, you want to be a little bit of a faster player, you want to have some speed. She can work a little bit slower depending on how technical you want to get, but she does fit better in faster or aggressive playstyles. You can run her in standard, but for like turn 2, if you play super slow, I think there's better options. Overall though, I think she has such an overloaded kit that no matter what, she's going to be amazing in all areas of PvP, and she's also really good in certain PvE areas like Hall of Trials. So a very, very strong pick, can't go wrong with her either. Next up we have ML5 Kangai. Now this is what I could see some people wanting to put down a row, or you know, slightly lower than Stenny, whatever it might be, just slightly lower. And I do agree that he is kind of getting more and more counters introduced, like the new Flitica, now that she's getting played a lot more. Units that can stop him, like Lua, that have skill pushback. There's ways to get around his, you know, immediate sort of debuff protection that made him so powerful on his newly buffed release. But overall, I think, guys, if you just want a no-brain cleanser that's not too hard to gear, that just works, he is still the best for almost all players. But depending on how far in the end game you are, depending on how many options you are, potentially he could lose some stock if, let's say, you prefer to run like DJB or something like that, Desert Jewel Bazaar. But overall, I think he's still an amazing pick, definitely deserves to be in the meta row. Now, same thing with Spectre Tenebria, guys. Some of y'all might want to place her lower, as she does have a ton of hard counters. Anything with AoE, a lot of times can just deal with her. However, I think she is still going to be, honestly, since her release, one of the most powerful ML5s, post-buff, though, on her very release. She was a little bit different. But one of the most powerful ML5s for so long, insanely strong in PvE. Any account, I think, can make great use of her in everything non-PvP related. She's a PvE monster. And then when we get to PvP 2, despite having a lot of counters, she demands answers. Meaning, if you get to pick her and your opponent can't answer her, they don't have enough AoE, they can't reach her in stealth, she automatically wins you the match. The fact that she can also be played in a lot of different playstyles, aggressive playstyles, with like books. You can play her in standard. You can play her even in slow matches if you want to go like lifesteal. I think she's just a very, very solid pick. She's not one like a Pox Ravi that you can pick early because of holler counters, but I think the fact that she's so strong in all areas of the game, she deserves a spot at the top. All right, let's move on to the A row. We're going to pick up the pace a little bit here, guys. In the A row at the top, now Lionheart is also one that maybe some people want to put her in S, but I think she's okay here in A, as she does have, you know, she does have certain things that maybe the S rank row is just a little bit better at. Depending on how slow you guys play, she does have the vulnerability that sometimes she just dies, especially to attack up Stennies with Vigor buff from Conquer Lilius. But overall, if you can make her survive, if you can have the gear for her, and we're not going to talk too much about gearing. I'm assuming most of y'all can gear these units, or eventually will have enough gear. You'll do the due diligence and build up, farm up enough to gear all these units, whatever you might end up picking. Lionheart Sermon, I think, is just so solid. Just like Stenny, she's amazing for PvE, especially for newer players. And then in real-time arena, and Guild Wars, there's some comps. She'll fight certain matchups that she'll just automatically win. And then, you know, she hard counters certain things that extra attack, dual attack, whatever it might be. I think Lionheart's Army is just super, super solid. Just be aware that when in aggressive metas, she can have the vulnerability of just dying sometimes, unfortunately. Next up, we have Desert Jewel Bazaar, who is a little bit interesting too as well, guys, as he will be losing his 7 speed. So depending on what kind of playstyle you have, if you use him as the mega fast opener, let's say you play in an aggressive or a cleave comp or something, he's going first. He will lose a little bit of stocks, as I mentioned that the speed is shifting to mages. So top model Luluka, any other mages will get 7 speed. Desert Jewel Bazaar will be losing 7 speed. If you were planning to make him the fastest unit, be aware of that. However, I do think he is so strong right now with the prevalence of barriers, with the fact that he provides immunity in a debuff heavy meta, and the fact that just after all his changes, he's a super solid first pickable unit that can pivot either into fast aggressive playstyles or more standard playstyles. He can also be just used to hard counter units like Roz, like Fallen Cecilia, anything with barriers, really, Para especially. I think he's just in a very, very good spot now. Very versatile. Still a super strong unit worth considering picking up. Next up, we have Archdemon Mercedes, who, like as the road says, guys, playstyle defining. Archdemon Mercedes is just a giga carry, hard carry unit, meaning if she's cycling, if you're getting turns with her, she's proccing seals and she's accelerating her focus, she will close out the match by herself no matter what she's fighting against. She's super strong. However, she is also RNG focused a little bit, meaning sometimes she will just be asleep. She won't be proccing her extra hits, her skill 1 into skill 2s. Sometimes she'll miss the seals if you're not soul burning. And then she does have a few hard counters like Solitaria, Cleave, a few other things like Rowana on Stella Harpa can hard counter her as well. But I do think she's an amazing unit if it fits your playstyle. Slower counter playstyle. Next up, guys, we have Bellion, and this is an interesting one because Bellion, I always see the argument that Bellion is always pre-banned, post-banned. Why even bother? Guys, there's still so many matches where some players will try to sneakily sneak a Stenny through, a Spectre Tenebria through, or it's just some kind of lots of mages and they have different pre-bans, and you want to have that Bellion ready to stop those kind of players. On top of that, there's just a lot of matches where you can build her on injury and grind people down. You can use her to reach things like Landy. She's definitely good outside of just hard countering like mages and souls. So I definitely think she deserves a spot in the A row. She is a playstyle defining unit. And if you don't have her, I definitely think you should pick her up depending on how important you think she'll make use of her to counter certain styles. Okay, next up, guys, we have Designer Lilibet, and just like Bellion, she's going to be more of a counter style unit. You don't really want to first pick her as not proactively. Instead, you want to pick her into debuffs, you know, especially units like Rand, for example. And I think for that reason alone, she is so powerful and a very, very good tool to have in your toolkit. She can be used outside of that as well if you have insane gear. Sometimes she can just be used as sort of a bruiser, but typically you see her mostly just to fight debuffs. But in this meta where cleave and debuffs are very powerful, I think Lilibet is also very powerful. Next up, guys, we have Faithless Lidica, who is an interesting one because it's not my area of expertise, but I fought so many. I definitely respect her, and I think she is insanely, insanely strong. After her buffs, yeah, she's not the fastest unit, so she can be outsped. But when you use her against slower units, slower players, slower playstyles, she just completely dictates the meta. She can stop Mediator Quirk in his tracks. She can provide a lot of support for her team. And now after the buff, she does some crazy damage while also just always being annoyingly in stealth via Guiding Light or whatever might have you. So I think she's definitely strong and super, super worth picking up if you can fit that aggressive, fast play style. Next up, we have Strays, and after his buff, same thing with Faithless Lidica. He just bullies slower players. He can't even be countered now after the buffs. He's just insanely strong and also has a little bit of PvE bonuses for one-shotting certain hunts. So definitely a solid pickup if you think you can make use of that. Closer Charles. This one could probably be moved down or up or down a row. It doesn't matter too much. I think, though, I just think Closer Charles is just a very, very nice aggro pickup. I'm not whatever the aggro terminology is between like what he provides for the team. He just is a necessary tool for those kind of styles. So if you like playing aggressive, Closer Charles is definitely a great pick. More so than some of the aggressive units in the B row, in my opinion. All right, let's move on now to the solid pick row. the B row. All right, let's pick up the pace once again. B row, we have Sage Ball leading us off, guys. And I know a lot of players don't like his looks, but gameplay-wise, he is one of the best answers right now to fight cleave. So if you are having trouble fighting players that just go first and kill you off the bat, he is one of the best answers for that. Just keep in mind his gearing is a little bit tough, but with the newly introduced 7 speed in real-time arena for mages, he's going to get a little bit easier to meet all the stat requirements. But don't underestimate him, guys. He's one of the few true answers to fighting certain cleave comps. Next up, we have Spirit Eye Selene, who is very, very strong in areas like Guild Wars and Arena. She's really nice for newer players that just want to stack or have a light bait unit that can provide immortality, can, you know, come back in certain matches. But overall, she does have a lot of hard counters. She's not like a first pickable unit because of all those hard counters, so she definitely deserves to be in this B row. Just a solid pick overall if you really like her. Solitaria. This one is definitely an interesting unit. She can take over matches alone. If you ever bring her and your opponent doesn't have enough cleanse or no cleanse at all, she will often just control the entire match, debuff the entire match to victory. On top of that, she does have that anti-focus mechanic, so she hard counters units like Seaside Bologna, like Archdemon Mercedes, just to name a few. So she's definitely a solid pickup, but the fact that she's not like a proactive pick and that you want to maybe pick her in a more, you know, counteractive role, meaning that's why we place her kind of in the solid pick row. Operator Sigret is obviously very strong. One of the best anti-barrier units out there. But yeah, she just deserves to be in this B row, as there's some other aggro units that don't need to be, you know, brought into just barriers. And I think they provide a little bit more than what she brings besides just the damage potential. I know she has other stuff in her kit, but overall, you primarily pick her into barriers. Speaking of barriers, we have Fallen Cecilia up next, and this lovely lady has been losing stocks left and right. Where she used to be in the S tier row, she's kind of just comfortably sitting somewhere in the middle. She still has her uses with the fact that she provides a barrier every turn and starts the match providing your whole team with barriers. You can kind of protect immunity. She has skill nullifier. She has insane stats. But overall, other knights are taking her spot, especially free-to-play knights. And every time a new unit that counters barriers gets introduced, like Arunka, I do think she loses stocks a little bit. Also, the new protection set kind of invalidates her playstyle or her uniqueness a little bit. Sylvian is kind of like the other units I mentioned that have a lot of hard counters. She can be amazing in the right hands. She can fight units like Apocalypse Ravi one-on-one. She provides crit damage for the squad and has some soul burnable AoE to reach units like Spectre Tenebria. But with how many hard counters she has, you have to pick her very carefully. Carrot, the pre-nerfed Hua Young, the I think Arunka now as well. Rimu. What else, guys? The Hawk. There's a lot of units that can just pop her through her defensive mechanics and make her a liability. So you do have to play her a little bit more carefully, but she is a solid pick, so she should be in this row. Little Queen Charlotte up next she's one that is hard to play. She can be controlled. She can be kind of stopped in her tracks. But if she ever does get, you know, the ball rolling, she is the, like, hands down one of the best anti-dark units, anti-Apoc Ravi, anti-anything dark, really. The problem is getting her to achieve that role without, you know, getting crowd controlled, without getting killed. So it's just one of those where when she works, but there's so many units that can kind of interrupt her game plan. Sometimes it's not worth trying to put that all together. But she is a solid pick. If you do need extra help nuking dark units, she is one of the best at that. Next up, we have Arbiter Vildred, and this could be a very controversial one. Some of y'all might want him in A row. Some of y'all might think he's so bad now you put him in the C row. But the fact that he kind of lost his main PvE utility of dog walking, he's still great for speed running certain areas, guys, if you just want to save time. But same thing like Little Queen Charlotte, like Sylvian, he has a lot of counters. A lot of extinction things are out there. A lot of units that can 2-tap him like Spectre Tenebria. He's not as good of a pick compared to some other ML5s at the moment, but I still think you need to put respect on RB, as if he just hits that greater attack buff or you fight a DJ in RB, sometimes they can still win matches and they're still good enough to pick here in the B row. May, Chloe, and Ruel, let's group them together, guys. It's just not really a revive meta at the moment. Other cleansers, other soul weavers, other units like Kawaric and DJ Bazaar kind of just a little bit better at the moment. Destina is just a green, you know, RGB unit that is just much better in my opinion. May Chloe, though, is a little bit of an exception as she can fit certain playstyles, but Ruel is definitely out of the meta at the moment. I mostly put her in the B row because I think no matter what, if the playstyle ever slows down, Ruel will go back into the meta. But right now, neither of these units are that amazing, but they can definitely shift up depending on if the meta shifts ever. All right, let's go with our last row, guys, the niche row. C. Alrighty, guys, the C row, Last Rider Crow can be very good, but definitely all the other units on this list are kind of just in a better spot. We do order this, guys. The entire list is ordered left to right. So I'll just say, right, these last 3 units I think are the worst. Overall, they don't really have too much of a spot right now unless you really love them. But Last Rider Crow is definitely the best of this C row. But honestly, unless y'all really love this row, try to pick something above if you want the best bang for your buck. Specimen says, I think he might be gaining stocks or value because of ROL. But overall, I think he's also still very niche. Same thing with Ambitious Tywin. These are the golden boys, these 2 right here. There could be a meta where he comes back, but right now he's just not really good enough. Same thing with Bryceria. On paper, she's very good, does damage, does debuffs, has immortality, but just never really makes the cut in terms of like competitive PvP. Haste, just not his meta. With these 2 not really being in the meta, Revives just not being that great. Overall, he just isn't there. Dark Corvus, still very good for Guild Wars. But beyond that, very, very niche in real-time arena. Maybe just to fight things like Solo, Lionheart, Sermias. And then the last 3 I mentioned, these 3 guys, unless you really love them, I just don't think they're in a great spot at the moment. And I think with that, we'll wrap it up here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any additional questions, leave that in the comments below. And yeah, I'll catch you all in the next one, guys. Good luck. Get your ML5 that you want. And yeah, just hopefully this reassures y'all. Thanks for watching. Peace out, everybody.